Watchmaking, the bi-weekly podcast diving deep into the world of watches, craftsmanship, and the industry. Join us as we uncover personal stories behind your favorite timepieces, explore the latest trends, and discuss business strategies. I am Elizabeth Isakova, your guide in this journey. Coming from a background in political journalism, I am excited to explore the intricate world of watches with you and ask uncomfortable questions. Whether you are a collector, enthusiast, or professional, watchmaking is your gateway to the fascinating realm of horology. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Watchmaking. Thank you for your support of our latest episode with the guys from the Iced Out, who managed to assemble over 1 million Swiss francs with their rough diamonds auction. And today we will continue to explore the watchmaking world and boldly go to the roots of the current state of the industry with Rolex and their exceptional watches for exceptional people. So please welcome, straight from Japan, Mr. Pierre-Yves Donzé. Pierre-Yves is a professor of business history, Graduate School of Economics, Osaka University. He is the person who wrote the book on the phenomenon of Rolex, which is called La Fabrique d'Excellence. Hello, Pierre-Yves.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great. So let's go straight to the topic, to the book that you wrote. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book? Why did you decide to write it? How was it? Was it hard to find the data?
Yes, so first I must say I'm a business historian working on creative industries, working a lot on fashion, luxury, and watches. I have already written a few books in French, translated sometimes in English and in Japanese on the global watch industry with many perspectives, companies, regions, entrepreneurs, etc. But there was always a big lack in my research, which was Rolex. You know, he's the world's largest company since more than half a century. And I was unable to talk about it. And some readers complained about it. They said, yeah, your books are great, but why don't you talk about Rolex, the number one?
Why do you
why? Because there's no data. You know, I'm a historian, I'm an academic, and many people talk about Rolex. Many people in Switzerland, in the world, have a clear idea about why Rolex became number one. If you talk around you, everybody has an idea. But what is the basis of these ideas? It's mostly imagination, half observation, lots of rumors, but it's not based on data. And as a scientist, I try to write history based on data, which our data for historians is archives, old documents. And you know, when you don't have access to the archives of Rolex because it's completely closed, it's part of the concept to be secret. So it's very hard to understand how this company was founded, developed, etc.
It's kind of a private company that functions on the principles of British royal family: never explain, never complain. So
exactly. It's not listed, so they don't advertise anything, and they don't communicate because the secret is part of the concept, as I will explain. So I had to find documents, and hopefully it was not my first book. You know, while writing books on the watching history, while looking for archives, I had a chance, you know, to know quite well the archives about watch business in not only Switzerland but in the world, and I found Rolex in many places by chance. And so that I decided to prepare this book. But it's not only a matter to have access to archives. I use lots of documents, you know, not from Rolex, but from many partners of Rolex: a federal government in Switzerland, government of Canton of Geneva and Bern, also in Switzerland, labor unions, watch organization like FH today, and other companies, partners with Rolex, especially the J. Walter Thompson, which was the largest advertising company of the world, which archives are kept in the US and in the UK, and they are accessible for research. And this company developed not only advertisement for Rolex, but they invented together with Rolex the idea of a social status product,
Oh,
not
yeah.
a watch to tell you the time, but what is Rolex today? The exceptional watch for exceptional people. This idea of social success.
Exactly.
And
So, for those who can't read in French, could you please give us a quick summary of the book? Because I think that's the major point of the book, to show that it was they outsourced the marketing campaign actually at some point.
Exactly. The key point of my book was to understand how Rolex became number one in the 60s and was able to keep number one until today. And I have demonstrated, if I'm very fast, I can say that Rolex actually is the encounter between Swiss engineering and American marketing. And it gave birth to something completely new. Swiss engineering, it means we know in Switzerland how to make the best watches, how to mass produce high quality watches, which are Rolex today, very excellent watches. But it's not enough to make Rolex. We need also the second part of the story, American marketing, to create a discourse on excellence. So it means the excellent watch is not only an excellent product, but it's an excellent product for excellent people, for special people. And now it looks, something that everybody knows, but it was an invention, marketing invention in the 60s. And at that time, all other competitors like Omega, Longines, Zenith, IWC, they were still focusing their design and the design strategy and the concept on precision. It was a key point to be a precise watch. But in the 60s, Rolex decided to change the message, to change the concept. Rolex was not a precise watch anymore. It was a discourse on excellence. And this is what I demonstrate basically in this book with, of course, lots of details, lots of explanations and documents.
Yeah, and speaking about the documents, where was the most unexpected place where you found the documents on Rolex?
I wouldn't say it's unexpected, but it's... at first, what was a bit surprising is about the American advertising company. Of course, the documents were not in Switzerland. They are at Duke University in North Carolina in the US. And there's also in Norfolk in your United Kingdom in a special archive specialized in advertising history. So, but when you're a professional historian, you know how to look for databases for companies, and it was not surprising. It was just, necessary to go outside of Switzerland to look for such documents.
You mentioned that this book is about the Swiss experience merged with US marketing work. And it's interesting that actually historically the origins of car manufacturers in Switzerland are coming also from US, including Waltham Watch Company. And now you're talking about the better marketing experience that is also coming from the US. So do you think there is an explanation about this kind of phenomenon that, all the ideas are coming from the US, but they are laid on the fruitful ground of Switzerland, and it starts to bloom actually here?
Yes, but I think that two very different phenomena, about manufacturing. Manufacturing watches didn't start in the US. It started in Europe, it's developed in the UK, and then in continental Europe. But the production system changed in the US. The American invented the mass production of standardized watches in factories, like they did for many products, including the sewing machine, the car. It's
exactly.
the American production system, and it was introduced in watchmaking, and it led in late 19th century the Swiss to adapt some their production system to be more rationalized. And it was important, and you're right in this perspective that Egler factory, which became Manufacture des Montres Rolex in Biel, was a promoter of the mechanization of watch movements in late 19th century. But in history, everything is connected with everything. So, but I think the impact of US advertising of the watch industry is much more important because it's really an American invention. The American invention is not actually to advertise because advertising is quite old, but what's changed in the 60s, and Rolex was a very early adopter of these new techniques, is that companies stopped talking about the product to talk about the clients, to talk about the users of the product. In the US, it started with a very big name, which is Pepsi-Cola, Generation Pepsi. It's talking about the users, the drinkers of Pepsi, not about Pepsi itself, because Coke was better and most known. So Pepsi changed completely the way to advertise and make lots of stories about the users of the product. And Rolex was one of the first, especially for high-end watches. It was the first to do that. Competitors still talked about the watches, how the watches were great, precise, won concours in chronometry concours. But Rolex stopped talking about the product, but started to talk about the users of the Rolex. The users of his Rolex are exceptional. They're men of power. They are good entrepreneurs, famous sportsmen, excellent people. And it changed completely the narrative of the brand and made Rolex something very special.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because even psychologically, it's very smart and plays on humans' vanity, and it makes you feel that you're actually special when you wear this watch.
Exactly. And what is important also is that it's not Wilsdorf himself who invented that with the American, because it was developed in the mid-60s when Wilsdorf was already dead. But it's his successor, André Heiniger, CEO of Rolex between 64 and early 90s, that worked closely with GWT in New York to develop this concept of exceptionality. And what is interesting, and this is why we all know Wilsdorf today, that Heiniger made Wilsdorf a hero. He made Wilsdorf the hero who invented the Oyster watch and the Rolex. So it's not only a double exceptionality, it's a triple exceptionality. It's an exceptional watch by an exceptional man, Wilsdorf, for exceptional men, the consumers, the users. And after, it never changed. There were the different managers of Rolex were clever enough to keep completely intact this clear concept, and this is why they keep secret also the history of the company. There's no communication because everything is focused on this triple exceptionality, except that we don't need to say anything. And it makes the concept really, really strong.
Yeah, but you need to prove this exceptionality, which Rolex does actually with their watches.
Actually, but it was already established in the early 60s because they were already recognized when they talked about the product as the best, but they keep doing that. That's why they communicate only on these three parts. An exceptional product, and they still communicate, They have chronometers, always with a high durability and etc. They communicate on exceptionality of users versus the advertising of using sportsmen, entrepreneurs, etc.
Yeah, there was a really nice advertisement of watch of the Rolex watch, which you wear when you make a speech at the United Nations building in New York.
Yeah, exactly. And to show that the narrative is based on the users and not only on the product itself, is that, for example, when you have a Roger Federer advertising for Rolex, he's not only playing tennis, but he's just wearing a smoking and having a Rolex. And Federer has a Rolex because he's exceptional, not because the Rolex helps him to win some place. It's not an instrument, Rolex. It's a status symbol.
Clearly, they know they knew their customers very well. So because it's actually, as I mentioned before, it's very psychologically very well built marketing company.
No, you're completely right. It's the target of the market is very, very focused, since a long time. So that's why they know who they target, and as the target is clearly the same over time, they really know who are the consumers and how to communicate with them.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is very important what you just said, that they know how to communicate to their customers. Because some other brands, they just, they have their patterns which they follow, and sometimes it never changes. But Rolex, even though we don't see that much of communications, we see that Rolex is actually talking to the customers, responding to their needs at some point.
You are completely right. There are some slight changes over time. One of the most striking is that the inclusion of women. Women are much more included today, even if it's still mostly a brand for men, because the narrative is really, a narrative for men. The idea of power, social success, individual success. It's kind of male value. Mostly. First, Rolex in the 50s, 60s had very different watches for women, like a jewelry watches, a not exceptional product, not very tough and durable products. It was also GWT, the New York advertising company, that said to Rolex that you should include better women in your narrative. Because some women also are sensitive to this discourse on exceptionality. Some women identify themselves with women who are successful. And from the 80s, we can see, early 80s, that women are much more integrated in the discourse. There are still some collections for women. Cellini, the Cellini sub-brand, is a bit on the margin of this general narrative and much more addressed to women. But now you have a lot of oysters for women since the early 80s. And the advertisements include also women. There's not so much a gender perspective in Rolex advertising.
Yeah, and they actually started also like kind of a neutral watches, which you can wear, which can be worn by men and women equally. It's like the rainbow Daytona and other.
Yeah, exactly, because this is understand really. We say it never. The core message never changes, but the managers are clever enough to understand how to navigate in our unstable society and to answer the new social issues of our world, like more gender equality, etc.
Actually, that is exactly what inspires me most in Rolex, is that it's a brand that kind of thinks in centuries, like you're in Asia now and you know all these Chinese proverbs about the thinking centuries ahead. So in a way, Rolex is starting in the 60s when it was kind of visionary for a Swiss watch brand to talk about women and to produce watches for women. And you also mentioned in your book that during the establishment of the Wilsdorf Foundation, it was one woman who was in the board of directors. Mm-hmm. So I think in the 60s, especially for Switzerland, it was kind of a breakthrough. In a way. Exactly.
It was a breakthrough, but it's important not to over-interpret the meaning of the presence of two women in the board of Wilsdorf Foundation, because they were both middle managers in Rolex watch company, and I don't know, not having access to Rolex archives, there's some questions to which is impossible to answer. And why did Wilsdorf promote a few women to some managing position is really unclear, but they never became CEO or directors. It's mostly middle management. Even it's already something very new, but I don't know why. But at the same time, the product is very mature. Until the 60s, early 70s, Rolex is a product and a discourse for men. and I would say for white American men from the Eastern Coast, the New Yorker. So it's really a very focused discourse which seduced lots of men in Europe, in Western Europe, and in Japan, and in Hong Kong at the time, and slightly they were able to make the discourse, the narrative, more globalized, keeping this idea of excellence, but not only targeting the white male, but integrating women and getting more general ethnically. This is, I think, an important point to be so successful around the world. It's not a so white male image anymore since a few decades.
Yeah, the world has changed.
Yeah, exactly. And Brown understood that.
So what are the key points of this marketing campaign that other brands can implement, maybe? Or you think that this is a kind of marketing experience that's only see to Rolex?
I think it's not, at first, it's not a marketing campaign which is important, it's a concept. You need a strong concept. And actually, I would say Rolex never developed a marketing campaign by itself. They developed a concept. So a concept of exceptionality. And based on that, they have advertising campaigns. But if you don't have the concept, you don't have campaigns. And many brands, sometimes they don't have a clear concept, and they try various campaigns for 1-2 years, and after they shift to another one, then to another one. And it makes, in the long-term perspective, the brand image quite unclear. But first is a concept. I think about Patek Philippe, with the idea that when you have a Patek Philippe, you create your own tradition. This is a really strong concept also. That's why it's not only an advertising campaign, but first there's a concept, and they develop product based on that. They develop lots of narratives, etc. So first is a concept.
And you mentioned Patek Philippe. In your opinion, what other brands can compete, if I may put this word, with Rolex at the moment?
Yes, Patek Philippe is a different segment, so it's not really Rolex. Of course, Rolex has competitor. They're based in what we call the accessible luxury segment. So it's not exclusive luxury like Patek Philippe. It's, I wouldn't say a Rolex is affordable for everyone, but the price is not over expensive. It's possible if you save money every month to buy one. Problem is not to have the money, is to be able to find a Rolex in a store.
Actually, this is another point we are going to tackle later.
Okay, but it's accessible luxury. So the same price segment, the strong ones are Omega. Omega is the historical competitor of Rolex. Before the war, Rolex targeted Omega because Omega was number one, and Rolex was able to overcome Omega during the 70s and stay number one. And Omega is trying since the 90s when Jean-Claude Biver came to Omega to come back, but Omega was never able to catch up again with Rolex. And then we have in the past there were, I would say, Abel in the 90s was quite strong in this segment. We had Tag Heuer tried, I would say 15 years ago, or under the direction of Jean-Claude Babin, they tried to go up to this segment, but it failed in a mid-term perspective. And then we have Cartier, but Cartier is much more for women watches. It's not so it's different. There's a Rolex with a strong male image, and Cartier is a strong female image. And so that's why they don't compete directly. Yeah, but Cartier is now changing. Yes, shifting a bit. But I would say, maybe from now, there's a number two. We never know, but the gender balance is a bit different for both products. Yeah, it's true. That's why Rolex doesn't have a so strong competitor in its segment of price for the moment. Coming back to unavailability of certain pieces at the stores, how does this combines with this marketing concept of
exceptional watches for exceptional people. Because even if you want to be an exceptional person wearing an exceptional watch, if you go straight to the shop and ask, I don't know, Daytona Oyster, Perpetual, or just Day-Date, you will not be able to get this.
The demand grew too fast during the last few years, and this is a problem. So the rarity, some exclusive luxury brands manage rarity. You need to be rare to get some more value, being difficult to get a watch like Richard Mille, Patek Philippe, increase a lot the value. It's the same for Rolex, but the problem with Rolex after the second-hand price, which, have bad impact on the business itself, because people don't want to buy a Rolex for themselves anymore because they believe in this idea of exceptionality. It's just to make money, because you can resell for more expensive price on the second-hand market, and that's why the company doesn't like it. They try to manage. It's quite difficult, You need to be aware, but not too much, to address the needs of the clients you target, and not of just people who want to make money. And this is the reasons why the company decided to open a new factory in a canton of Fribourg to produce more watches.
Yeah, but unfortunately, in the community, there are also people start talking that even though there will be more watches, there still will not be available at the shop. So that's actually kind of eliminate one of the exceptionality out of this equation, and you don't feel this exceptional if you can't get the watch that you want, or if you have to wait in the list for years and years.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, but it's it's very very difficult to be. You cannot produce too much, because otherwise it's no more luxury and it loses its value. But if you don't produce enough, you cannot address also the needs of your target consumers, and you have the problem of the second-hand market getting too expensive and people just investing in your products. So there's a very hard balance to find between both, being aware but not too much.
Yeah. But do you think that Rolex should now make some adjustments to this marketing concept? Because, it will still work for some people, but I don't think that it's still working for the watch community for the reasons that we mentioned before.
I think I'm not a manager of the brand, but I think the point is not to change this core message. It kept Rolex number one for more than for half a century, and there's so many changes in the watch industry during that time, but Rolex kept number one. And you may think the watch community doesn't believe in this message anymore, but last year, look at the figures, 10 billion Swiss francs of gross sales. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's exceptional.
It's amazingly increasing. So I would say it's a perfect business model, and there are lots of small adjustments that made it even stronger and stronger over the recent years.
So how do you see the future of the Rolex now?
I have no idea. Usually I don't talk about the future because many people have also strong ideas about the future, but if you read what they said a few years later, you will say that nearly all of them failed. So we don't know. In a short-term perspective, Rolex will kept on its position, strengthen it. In the long term, I have no idea, and I believe nobody has any idea. Nobody knows about the future.
Yeah, that's true. We don't have a crystal ball for this. Coming back to the marketing and communication strategy for Rolex, it was actually quite unusual for us to hear the recent statement of the CEO regarding the indie brands being pirates during Watches and Wonders. And this was not taken very lightly by the watch community and watch brands as well, indie brands. Do you think it was a kind of a failure to tell these things, or it's another strategy for Rolex, saying boldly that Rolex is exceptional? And
the history of watch fairs is full of these kind of stories, of brands struggling with each other's, between Basel and Geneva and La Chaux-de-Fonds, lots of fairs. And there are all competitors at the end, Sometimes they organize something together to attract the attention of the media, of retailers, of wholesalers, etc. But at the end, they compete, and when you compete, you can be not angry. You can be angry about what some competitors do, but I would say it's business as usual.
What lessons can brands learn from Rolex history?
The point is to have a concept. Not only to make a product, but to make a concept. Here we talk about the concept of exceptionality, but it's not the only one. But having a concept is the starting point. And thinking more about that is necessary to build something very competitive. This is a main lesson we can learn from Rolex history.
And I think also the second lesson is the product itself. You need to know your customers and you need to provide the product that they are looking for.
Yes, but you decide your customers after you have built your concept, especially in luxury. In the rules of luxury, you should focus more on your concept of what you want to do and not making a market service, because if you make market service, you will not have a very strong concept. You will just try to very fast develop something to address in a short term your consumers' needs. But concept is a point to be different from other brands.
As a historian, especially historian in the watchmaking world, what do you think people, or you wish people knew about the watch industry?
Wow, a lot of things. I would understand better why the Swiss has a dominant position in this industry, not only Rolex, but Switzerland. Why Switzerland emerged in the dominant nations and kept over the crises its dominant position, beyond all the discourse about, knowledge, know-how, traditions, etc. But this is, I think, that's why I discuss also in some of my previous books, the long-lasting competitive advantage of Switzerland. Because Switzerland is a small open economy, and from the beginning, Swiss watchmakers had to sell their watches abroad. We don't have a national market in Switzerland. We must sell watches abroad around the world. So it means we must be competitive. It's not only a story of the watch industry, it's a story of the Swiss industry. And if you look at other competitors in watch history, they were nearly all from big countries: Japan, the US, France, Germany, USSR. And every time they had a problem, they closed the border and they refocused on domestic market to save them. The Swiss were never able to do that because we can close the Swiss market. You will never sell enough watches to survive. So it's a pressure to be competitive around the world. And I think this is a key point.
Yeah, and speaking about concepts, this is a great and strong, very strong marketing concept of Switzerland as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So thank you very much. But before finishing our interview or podcast discussion, we ask a couple of questions, actually 3 questions to our guests related to watches.
Just one information that maybe would be interesting for your for people who are listening to this podcast. If they don't read French, my book should be published next year by Manchester University Press, English edition of my book.
That was my last question, but thank you for mentioning this. Yeah, it's very important also. Yeah, for those who can't read French, you guys should wait 1 year from now for the edition in English. I think it will be great, and I think it will be a success. Coming back to the questions, what are the 3 most important aspects or features of the watch for you?
I would say it's a concept and the story told by the brand. It's also the aspect, the design, the aesthetic of the watch. It must be beautiful. For me, they're the 2 most important aspects, what it tells you and how it is. And I would say the last one is the function, because it must be precise enough, and have a reserve long enough, etc. Technical aspects are also important.
So, if you could only wear one watch for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Which one would it be? I don't know. Only one. I would say no watch if it's only one for all my life, because watch is an accessory that you want to change according to what kind of clothes you wear, what is your feelings of the day. So if I cannot change, I would say no watches.
Okay. And I think this one would be very interesting for you. If you can meet and have a dinner with one person from the watchmaking world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I would say Nicolas Hayek, because, actually I had an interview we planned with him, but he just died before I was able to meet him and discuss, unfortunately. And after I haven't been able to meet the family anyway. But I would have a dinner with Nicolas Hayek because he was so important for the current watch industry. And I want to talk with him not only about the legend he created, but also about what all he attempted while he failed, because failure is very important, investing in telecommunications, in mass producing watches in China, and all the different attempts of an entrepreneur, taking risks and going through different ways. And after you find one that works, I really would have liked to talk with him about all these entrepreneurial activities.
Yeah, and maybe the current situation of Swatch at the market with all these Moon Swatch releases and the hype around it.
Yeah, if Nicolas Hayek would still be alive, I would be great to ask him what he's thinking about the current state of the industry, of course.
And how do you see the current state of the industry, by the way?
Everybody says, it's a critical phases, etc. But, look at the figures. It's amazingly increasing without major crisis since a long time. And without major structural crises. We have sometimes downturn due to COVID, due to global financial crisis, but it's only for 1 or 2 years and it's go back to the growth. So it's an impressive growth based on a very few numbers of successful luxury brands.
Yeah, this is kind of amazing. In a way, it's going that way, but I think the market will change soon.
We'll see. Yeah, exactly.
And that's it for today. Join me again in 2 weeks' time for the next episode, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to easily find us again. Until next time, viva watchmaking!